Welcome to the woods. It's been a while, 2 weeks nearly, and I've been really busy up here. Now that the weather's got a little bit better, I've been able to get out the back and redo a load of fencing that needed doing. But that's nearly done. I've just got the top rails to put on. But it's been a productive couple of weeks. And it's been enjoyable. I like to be able to get out and do stuff, get something done. To be able to stand back at the end of a job and admire what you've done that day. It's a nice feeling. Anyway, I hope you lot are all doing well. And I'm going to tell you a story today. Before I do that, I want to thank everyone who left a comment after that last video, where I spoke about what was wrong with the system we're in and asked what it was you thought would improve it. What should we junk? What should we add? And the amount of comments, I got over 150 comments, I think, were absolutely fantastic, and I'm still going through all of those. I've answered everyone on there, but I want to go through all of them, take out the information that you've given me, and in a couple of weeks' time I'll see if I can gel all of that information together and come up with something positive as a way forward. We'll see how it goes. But today, story time. And I want to tell you a story about a hotel. It's a run-down place. It's not looking too good. It's big, holds thousands, although there's not thousands there now. But the paint's peeling, there's damp. You wouldn't want to stay there too long. But it never used to be that way. In fact, it didn't start off as a hotel. The history of it is quite interesting. Many years ago, before things needed batteries, and life seemed a lot simpler and straightforward, two brothers decided that they would build a family home. They both had families and both wanted somewhere to live. Instead of building two separate places, they would build one. They were both doing quite well. So they pooled their resources, bought some land, and they got started. And as they started to build this family home, other members of the family, cousins, uncles, nephews and nieces, they all got involved as well. So this whole group, this whole family, were pulling together to build this home. And it became a sense of pride for that family that nothing was skimped on, that the best materials were used, and that it was them that was building it. And yes, they used help, and yes, they employed some people, but they didn't just sit back. They got their hands dirty. And more of the family became involved. And over the years, as they were building it, more of that family who needed somewhere to live wanted to be a part of it. So the original idea of just a home for two people or two families grew. And in the end, after years of building work, it had over 100 bedrooms when they'd finished. And it was occupied by one family. And they had all pulled together, and they'd bought the land, and they'd bought the materials. And whilst the husbands were out working and in their spare time doing the building, the wives had got involved and the daughters had got involved, working on the land, planting trees and flowers, building mazes. It was quite something to behold. And through the generations, this family added to the house. As their children grew up and had their own families, it grew from 100 rooms to nearly 150 as the children, not wanting to move away from the family home but needing more room, added to it. And as these family members travelled and brought ideas back to this country, so the architecture slowly changed as well, but always with an eye on the original beauty of the building, because it was a stunning place. And they furnished it with the finest stuff that they could afford. It was a well-loved family home. And as I've said, with 150 rooms, pretty impressive in size. And the grounds, which has started with the mothers and daughters working on, now had groundsmen to keep it in shape. And through the generations, as times changed and the working practices changed and the men were spending more time away from the home at work, some of them moved out to be closer to that work. And the house, although never empty, was never full. It had many, many rooms left empty. And as was usually the case, the family had a meeting. And what they'd always done was decide things through a democratic process. So if someone had wanted to add a new room or a wing, something that would affect the look for everyone, they would vote on it. And if they agreed, it would go ahead. And if they didn't all agree, or if the majority said no, then it wouldn't go ahead. And that's how they'd always done things. And it actually worked out well. And even the people that didn't necessarily get what they wanted understood that sometimes you have to give up your personal wishes for the greater good. The whole family instead of one individual. As I was saying, times had changed, and as much as it wasn't empty, a lot of it was. So they hired a property management company and said that they wanted to rent out some of the rooms. And they were going to use the money they got from the rent for the upkeep of the house. It was still a case of pride for that family to have this home that their ancestors had built. So the property company, thinking as any business would about profit, filled all of those rooms. But not as the family had thought, with locals from the surrounding area who knew the house But it seemed to them that the property management company had scoured the four corners of the globe for residents. All of them speaking different languages, it would seem. All of them bringing with them customs and traditions that the family had never seen before. But they were tolerant, and the rents were paid, and the money could go towards the upkeep of the house. And in the early stages, when they were renting out these rooms, the residents seemed in awe of their new surroundings. The detail work on the plaster and the corniche, the delicate furniture, everything that this family had created was the reason these people wanted to live there. It was a stunningly beautiful place. But that awe that these residents showed when they first got there soon faded. And before very long they were complacent. They were taking it for granted. The communal areas of the house were strewn with rubbish because they knew that the family had got cleaners and someone else would tidy it up. They never owned that bit of the house, so why bother looking after it? And things were broken. And things went missing. Valuable things went missing. The family presumed that they were stolen. And the reason for this was that the residents had no tie to this house, no understanding of the people that had put it together, and therefore didn't really care. The family were dismayed and called the management company and explained to them that the residents were disrespectful, that things had been stolen, things had been broken, and the management company promised they would speak to the residents, but warned the family that as residents they had legal rights and they couldn't be threatened. Anyway, months went by, and that dragged into nearly a year. Nothing got better. In fact, things got worse. After the management company spoke to the residents, they were then openly hostile to the family. On 2 occasions, drunken behaviour had led to altercations with family members. Violence was becoming commonplace. Foul language in front of the children. The residents had started to use parts of the gardens and parts of the house that were specifically not for them, but for the family. And in the end, it became too much. The family called the property company and said, look, we're going to call it a day. This isn't working out. And the property company informed the family that there was very little they could do. That under current legislation, they couldn't kick out these residents. Some of them had been there for years. Things were not looking good. The residents had formed an association and were now asking for things to be changed, for the decor to be changed, for access to areas they were never entitled to. One by one, the family members left. Not all of them, but a lot of them. They didn't want the grief. They didn't want the trouble. And as more of them left, the property company filled those rooms with more residents from everywhere. And slowly but surely, that once beautiful house became a hotel run by a for-profit management company. No pride in that place. No one pulling together. The Residents Association eventually got their way and got access to all areas. And those areas slowly deteriorated, the same as the communal areas had. It wasn't their ancestors that had travelled the world and brought this stuff back. It meant nothing to them. And even as I'm saying it, it sounds strange to think that these people that once wanted to live there because it was so nice would ruin the place for themselves. But that's what happened. And today that hotel still has a few family members tucked away in a back room who sit and wonder what happened. That how that once proud house fell into such disrepair. And how on earth do they get those residents out that now they're there? It's a strange story, and one I just made up. We'll call the Hotel Britannia. But there's always hope that those family members in that back room might come to their senses, might remember what they did have, and might stand up and take it all back again. So no matter how dark and down things look sometimes, there's usually a way forward and usually a way to make things better. But you can't just hide away in a back room. You can't let a management company tell you how to do it. Sometimes the answer's obvious. It just means you've got to do it. I'll speak to you next week, you lot. Enjoy your day.